Hello and welcome. If you're new here, my name is Claudia, and today we're making a bread recipe that's hundreds of years old. Broa de Milho is a Portuguese corn and rye bread that comes from the northern region of Portugal. It is fantastic for dipping in soups and stews, as well as it's used as a vessel to put a grilled sardine on top, so all the juices drain into the bread as you're eating the sardine, and at the end, when you're done eating all your sardines, you eat this piece of bread. It's also fantastic just with butter. So let's get into it. Bora cozinhar. So for this simple recipe, all you're going to need is, we're using 3 types of flour, salt, active dry yeast, and water. Our main flour is going to be corn flour. I'm using a yellow corn flour. This is Bob's Red Mill whole grain corn flour, and that's what I'll be using. Also, we need some rye flour. You can use dark rye or light rye. I'm using the dark rye, and some all-purpose flour. I just have organic all-purpose flour, and water. We're going to need a liter of water, which we're going to separate into boiling hot water to scald the corn flour with, and then just room temperature water to incorporate the rest of the flours. So let's get going. To start, we're going to measure out our corn flour. For that, we're going to need 500 grams of corn flour, and we're also going to add in our salt. Now we're going to add in about 450 grams of hot boiling water, and we're scalding the corn. Because the corn doesn't have any gluten, this is a way for us to activate the corn and give it sort of that gluten-like texture. Okay, so we have 450 grams of water, and we're just gonna give it a good stir. I'm just using a Danish dough whisk. You can use a wooden spoon also. So now we're gonna let it sit for about 30 minutes because we need it to cool down so we can work with it and we can add our yeast to it. So we're gonna set that aside. So I also have 50 grams of the boiling water that I put in my measuring cup, and I'm waiting for it to come down to lukewarm water, and then I'm going to add it to my active dry yeast and activate the yeast. So I'm going to wait for it to cool down, then add it to the active yeast, and we're also waiting for our we're also waiting for our corn mixture to cool down, so then that we can add our yeast to it. Water is warm now. I tested the temperature, and you never want to put anything over 110. It's at 107. Anything above 110 will kill the yeast. So I'm going to add it into my active dry yeast now, and it works out perfect because it's been about 15 minutes since we mixed up the corn with the boiling hot water. And we're going to need about 10 minutes for the yeast to activate. So you just want to make sure it's all dissolved. Okay, the half hour is up, and our corn mixture is warm to the touch but not hot. And now we're going to add in the remaining ingredients. Okay, so now we're going to add in our yeast. Mix that up into the corn. Now we're going to add in our rye flour and our all-purpose flour, and just a bit of the water. We don't want to add all the water because sometimes we don't need all the water. It just depends on the flour. Now we just want to mix it up. Add in a bit more water. And the water is just at room temperature. I'm going to start using my hands because I find that that's easier to do. So as you can see, it is a little bit of a sticky dough, but it is coming away from the bowl. It's a different dough than if you were to make like a normal dough with just all-purpose flour, because there isn't as much gluten in here. So you want to do this for about 5 minutes, and I don't think I need more water. It feels good. Okay, so here we have it, our dough. We're now going to let it rest for about 45 minutes to an hour, and then we'll come back and shape it and bake it. Okay, it has been 45 minutes, and after 30 minutes, I started to preheat the oven at 400. So the oven has been preheating at 400, and here is our beautiful dough. Okay, so now I'm going to flour the surface, give it a good flour, and I'm going to dump it out. I'm just using my scraper. See how it's just coming out nicely. There we have it. Get all of it here. So this is enough to make 2 cornbreads. So I'm going to divide it in half, and I'm going to set this one to the side. See how it is perfect, not sticky at all. Okay, so the difference between this cornbread and let's say another bread is that we're not going to really shape it. So I'm going to take a bowl. So I'm going to take a bowl and add in some flour. Give it a good amount of flour. And now we're going to put our dough in here. And what you want to do is you want to flip, and the flour is going to fly all over it. Flip, and that's how you're going to shape your dough. That's how you're going to shape your dough. And that's what's going to give the crackling effect. So let me just bring the camera closer so you can see. So we're doing a shaking movement, like so, and shaping it. It almost looks like a little football, and that's what you want to do. And I have a cookie sheet here with some parchment paper, and I'm going to just gently roll it out. There we have it. Here is our little cornbread. And that's all. Okay, so this one here, I'm gonna press out a little bit. Not very thin, you just want to be able to laminate the chorizo in. And now I'm going to take some chouriço that I've diced up small, and I'm going to add it to the dough. And now I'm going to fold it in. and sort of work it into the dough a little bit, like so. There's a little piece here. And you see the dough is not sticky at all. Just very nice dough. Okay, that is enough. So now the same thing, we're gonna put it in the bowl and just put more flour in it. And it is that shaking motion again, flip and shake, like so. And now we're just gonna add it to our tray. And now we're gonna put it in the oven for 35 to 40 minutes, and then we're gonna check on it. Okay, our bread is out of the oven, and look how beautiful it looked. The bread with the chorizo took a little bit longer than just the plain one. So be aware that if you're making this recipe with the loaves, with one with chorizo and one plain, that the one with the chorizo is gonna take a little bit longer. You're looking for an internal temperature of 200 degrees. And the way Grandma used to see if bread was done is she would just tap the bottom so you can hear it's done. She said that sounds like pom pom, which means bread. So now comes the difficult part of this recipe. We're gonna have to let it cool down completely. Half hour to an hour, and it needs to cool down. I'll be back to show you the inside once it cools down. Also, just want to mention, you want to make sure that it's on a wired rack so it can cool down from underneath as well. Okay, our cornbread is now completely cooled and we can cut into it. So I'm just going to cut through the middle. And let's see what it looks like inside. Oh, wow. Look how beautiful it is. And it smells delicious. So this is our plain. Let's now cut into our chouriço. Oh, look at that. This one is actually not cool yet because I can see the steam coming off it as I cut in, but still beautiful and smells delicious. Okay, moment of truth. Let's have a taste. I'm gonna have a taste of the plain cornbread. I'm just gonna cut the bum of it. See that? Beautiful, came out beautiful. And you can't have cornbread without butter. So I'm gonna put a bit of butter on it. Let's have a taste. Comes out perfect. Just like having it in Portugal. And now let's taste the chorizo one. So let's taste the chorizo. You can see. Very good. This is the regular cornbread. Just beautiful. Look at the crackling of it and the bottom too. And the chorizo. Again, I should have waited a little bit longer. It's still warm, so you can get a little bit gummy, but the taste is just amazing. If you've never made bread before, this would be a great introduction to bread making because it is so simple to make and it comes out so good. And this cornbread is great to have serve it on the side of a soup, or to even toast it up and serve it on a salad, or just have it with some butter and tomato jam. I hope you enjoyed this. Let me know if you make it, and hope to see you again soon. Thanks for watching.